Welcome back to Top Movie Recaps, as we bring to you yet another great recap to entertain you. In today's recap, we shall be taking a look at the horror drama movie called Hereditary. Hereditary is a movie that revolves around the life of a Graham family who are haunted by spirits after the demise of the matriarch of the family, who suffered from a series of mental illnesses. The movie opens up with a view of a dollhouse in a workshop in a treehouse to bring about a sense of eerie that keeps the audience hooked. The characters are slowly introduced, with Steve Graham, the father of Peter and Charlie Graham, and the husband of Annie Graham, being introduced first. He is seen waking up his children, Peter and Charlie, so as to get ready to attend the funeral of their grandmother, Ellen Taper Lear. While Annie gives out the eulogy, her daughter Charlie is distracted by a sketch that she was drawing out that was quite disturbing. Later on during the night, Annie gets to spend some time with her daughter, during which they strike a conversation about Charlie's grandmother. Charlie tells her mother that her grandmother always wanted a grandson instead of a granddaughter, and this takes Annie off guard. She is further shocked when Charlie starts speaking her mind out about who would take care of her then. Annie is further traumatized by everything when she sees a vision of Ellen through a memory book in her workshop. Back to Charlie, things are still spooky with this child. Charlie is seen in the next scene in school in her classroom. Out of nowhere, a bird suddenly flies into one of the classroom windows and is instantly dead. On seeing this, Charlie goes outside and does one of the most haunting things anyone could see a child do. Yes, she cuts off the dead bird's head. Annie is freaked out by all of the recent happenings ever since Ellen died and decides to take a look more into the world of apparitions and conduct intense research on it. While Annie is looking into this, Steve has a big secret that he's hiding from his wife, and it isn't good news. Ellen's grave was just desecrated, but seeing his wife in such mental turmoil, he decides to keep this bad news to himself. Annie finally decides to seek help after going through all of the mental anguish. So she lies to her husband, stating that she's going to see a movie, when in reality, she slips away to a grief support group. When she reaches the venue at which these support groups are held, she senses an eerie presence, with everything outside the venue being quite dark and gloomy. But she decides to brush away all of these negative thoughts and feelings and decides to open up about what's bothering her so that she gets better. Annie starts talking about her mother's mental issues such as dementia and dissociative identity disorder, which somewhat calm her down. Charlie, on the other hand, sees a strange light in her bedroom, and that's just another horror element added to make this movie all the more scarier. Annie gets a call from Sylvia Archer about the piece that she was working on. Annie is a sculptor for miniature dioramas, and the piece that Sylvia called to talk about featured Ellen. Now, onto Peter. He is trying to live the life every teenager wishes to live. Peter is interested in his classmate, Bridget, and he tries to get close to her by attending a party that she was attending. To do so, he ended up lying to his mother, stating that it was a party for school. Peter was meant to go alone, but Charlie falls into the trance state where she sees Ellen caught in a fire. Once she falls out of a trance state, her parents decide to send her with Peter. Charlie is forced to tag along with her brother at the request of their mother, and Peter was not at all liking it. At the party, Charlie leaves his sister alone to smoke up with his friends when his sister accidentally eats a food item that she's allergic to, resulting in her having an anaphylactic reaction. Peter tries to rush his sister to the hospital when he swerves the car to avoid hitting an animal. Due to this sudden move, Charlie is decapitated. Peter is mentally lost after what just happened and manages to take Charlie's headless body home. Annie is horrified on seeing her headless daughter. Charlie's funeral is held and the family struggles to return back to normal. Annie is back to attending his support group meetings, but finds it hard to go back after what happened to Charlie. That's when she meets Joan, who also faced a similar tragedy. Annie bonds with Joan further by going to her apartment and telling her about a sleeping incident that ruined her relationship with her children. Joan and Annie later are acquainted at a supply store when Joan tells Annie about her recent antics with psychics and science. Joan shows Annie how to communicate with the spirits and tries to communicate with her dead grandson. Joan encourages Annie to do the same to connect with her dead members of her family. That night, Annie experiences a vision inside another vision where she discloses some deep dark secrets about how she wanted to have a miscarriage with Peter and how she sees a swarm of ants all around her son's deceased body. Annie is totally appalled by this and decides to recite Joan's incantation with the aid of Charlie's sketchbook. Annie seems to be successful and tries to do the same in the presence of the rest of her family when Charlie's spirit seems to have possessed her mother, and Steve had to snap Annie out of the trance with water. After this incident, Annie is faced with heavy work pressure, and Peter feels that he's facing vengeance from the spirits for what he had done. Annie later realizes that the sketchbook is haunted after she attempted to attack Peter in her sleep and attempts to destroy it but fails. She goes back to Joan for help, where she realizes that Ellen knew Joan and they both were in the same coven. After finding out about how the coven used to summon the demon Paimon, one of the kings of hell, for their own benefit, Annie gets the shock of her life when she finds Ellen's headless corpse in the attic. Peter is in grave trouble as Joan tries to send Peter into a trance state. Annie finds both Steve and Peter and tells Steve about all of the information she just found out. She further explains how the family was cursed as soon as Ellen tried contacting Charlie through his sketchbook. Annie also tells Steve that he needs to destroy the book before it becomes too late, and they lose Peter too. Steve is baffled by what he just heard and blames everything on Annie instead. He even blames her for digging up Ellen's grave and refuses to burn Charlie's sketchbook. Annie realizes it's only her who can destroy the sketchbook, and that it could take her life too. Instead of her being affected while attempting to burn the book, Steve combusts and ceases to exist. Peter, who was fast asleep, wakes up to look around the house. He soon comes across the corpse of his father in a completely charred state and is totally horrified by it. Annie is now possessed and is after Peter, who tries to escape, falling into the hands of his mother. Peter lands up in the attic and is further horrified when he finds an image of himself with eyes punched out. The image is accompanied by candles and a swarm of disgusting flies. Annie is back and severs her own head. Peter is totally petrified and decides to jump out of the window, where he hits the ground and is knocked out cold. But Peter is then back up and follows after his mother's headless corpse that is making its way to the treehouse. What Peter sees are devil worshippers. They all greet him as he makes his way into the treehouse. Amongst all the spirits and eerie things Peter witnesses, he sees a woman with long flowy hair who dons a bathrobe. Apart from that, Peter sees his sister. Well, not his sister, but the head of his sister, placed on the body of a statue of Paimon. Peter does not know what to make of the situation he is in, and is terribly confused when he is acquainted with another shocking view. Peter sees the decapitated bodies of Ellen and his mother on the floor right in front of the statue of Paimon. While trying to make sense of all the dead bodies he saw of his family, he hears Joan's voice calling out to Peter with the name Charlie. The woman crowns Peter and welcomes this boy as Paimon, while the rest of the coven hail the arrival of the demon. The last scene of this movie has a shot of a model of the treehouse. The treehouse is stacked up with dolls and resemble Peter, his headless mother and grandmother, and of course, the coven too. With that, we come to the end of this recap, and we hope that you had a great time with us. Do drop a like to this video, subscribe to Top Movies Recap, and smash the bell icon to be updated with the latest happenings on our channel. Bye guys, and see you soon!